My phone shook in my hand, the call static-filled as my father's words cut through. "Jessica's bringing her boyfriend home for your mother's birthday. He's a big deal. He speaks and acts the part." A pointed pause. "Your job isn't exactly respectable. It's probably best if you don't come." My throat tightened, a feeling like an invisible hand squeezing it. Outside my office, the polished Seattle skyline, a view I'd earned, seemed to mock me. I gripped my mahogany desk until my knuckles turned white, the contrast stark against the expensive wood. My assistant had insisted it was fitting for a co-founder. "What are you saying?" My voice came out low, with a dangerous calm I barely recognized. "You just embarrassed the family," he said, each word flatter than the last. "If you still insist on coming, don't call me your father." The call ended with a soft click, a sound that echoed louder than any slam could have. Just then, a transaction notification popped up on my phone. The automated monthly payment of $376.80 for my parents' utilities had gone through. Transfer complete. It was just like the previous 23 months, just like the over $9,800 I'd paid without a single word of thanks. My name is Olivia. I'm 30 years old and a co-founder of Pacific TerraTech, a sustainable energy company. This is the story of how I finally made my family see me. I always believed family was everything. Growing up in a small town outside Seattle, I became an expert at fading into the background, at quietly covering bills, while my sister Jessica soaked up all the attention. She was the star. Her graduations, promotions, and breakups were all family events. Meanwhile, I built a multi-million-dollar company that my parents still called Olivia Fiddling with Computers. Their dismissal had become so familiar, I'd stopped seeing it as pain until now. For 2 years, I'd been secretly paying their bills. It started with a call from my mother about rising costs and a low retirement income. "If you could help us, even a little," she'd said, "it would mean so much." I agreed, thinking it would be temporary, but temporary became permanent. When I asked if Jessica contributed, my mother's excuses became a predictable routine. "She'll pitch in next time," or "she's covering your father's medical bills." I knew none of it was true, but I'd smile and keep sending the money, almost $400 a month, without complaint or recognition. Staring at my bank app, watching the transaction history scroll by, something inside me hardened. It wasn't anger or sadness, but a cold certainty. I'd spent years being invisible, hoping that quiet support would eventually earn me a place. Instead, it had earned me a ban from my own mother's birthday. My fingers moved over the screen, deliberately going to the automatic payments. One by one, I canceled the electricity, water, and internet bills. Not out of spite, but for my own self-respect, the one thing they hadn't managed to take from me. As I pressed the final button, my hand shook. Not from doubt, but from the terrifying realization that after 3 decades, I was finally choosing myself. A week later, my mother texted, "The internet bill is due. Can you take care of it?" No apology for my father's words, just another request. I put my phone down and went back to reviewing quarterly projections for our new solar initiative. My silence wasn't a statement. It was just all I had left to give. That night, I dreamed of my childhood home, but I couldn't find my bedroom, as if even in my subconscious, I no longer belonged. 2 weeks passed. My father left a voicemail. "The power bill hasn't been paid. What's going on?" No concern, no reference to our last conversation. I listened once and put my phone face down on my desk. My mother's birthday arrived 3 weeks after my father told me not to come home. I imagined the scene. Her favorite: roasted chicken, a cake from her bakery, the dining table surrounded by family. Everyone but me. The same table where for 25 years I'd accepted scraps of attention while Jessica feasted on praise. At 4:00 p.m., my phone lit up with my mother's name. I watched it ring until it stopped. My father called, then Jessica. 3 calls in 10 minutes. I let them all go, feeling a hollow calm as I gazed at the gathering storm clouds. 10 minutes. Later, the messages started. From Mom. Olivia, the power is out. The whole house is dark. Please pay the bill. From Dad. No water. We can't cook. Handle it now. From Jessica. The internet is down. Guests are arriving. Fix this. I glanced. At the clock 5:12 p.m. Exactly 3 weeks since I'd canceled the payments. 3 weeks since my father told me not to call him Dad. Now, in the middle of a celebration I was too embarrassing to attend, everything was shutting down. I didn't respond. There was nothing to explain. I just sat, turning my coffee cup in my hands, watching the rain outside. I realized they weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because there was no one left to take on their burdens. By 6:02 p.m., my phone was buzzing with messages from my extended family. You embarrassed your mother. Your sister was right. I read each one without replying, not because I agreed, but because I was tired of explaining myself to people who always chose the louder voice over the quieter truth. Then my Aunt Lauren called, the only relative who still saw me. I answered. Her face appeared on the screen, partially lit by the kitchen I knew so well, which now looked different, filled with strained laughter. You're not going to pay for it, Olivia? She asked, her voice gentle. Dad told me not to come home, I said, and that if I did, not to call him my father. Behind her, the room erupted. My mother's voice cut through. Tell her I'm ashamed of her. My father, sharp and impatient. It's just paying a few bills. What kind of daughter gets petty over money? Then Jessica appeared, arms crossed, a look of annoyance on her face. Mom's been crying all day, she said, picking up the phone. Does she even care? Seriously, no shame. I remained silent, watching this familiar scene play out. I was about to hang up when another face appeared at the edge of the screen. A young man with a dark suit and perfectly combed hair. He looked at me, then did a double take, his expression shifting to recognition. Hey, boss, he said, his voice cracking, as if unsure of the words. I froze. This was Hudson Kane, a senior engineer from our southern branch who'd transferred to Seattle 3 months ago. We'd emailed about a project, but I had no idea he was Jessica's boyfriend, the one they were all trying to impress. The room went silent. Whispers started. Did he just call Olivia? Boss? Is Olivia his boss? The murmurs grew louder. I waited, letting the moment unfold. Hudson straightened his posture, looked at everyone in the room, and said clearly, For those of you who don't know, I work at Pacific TerraTech. Ms. Olivia is one of the company's co-founders. The room fell into a stunned silence. I gave a slight nod of confirmation, then looked at him. Hope your big introduction goes perfectly, I said evenly, and hung up. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in years. Not from triumph, but because the weight of invisibility had finally lifted. They had seen me, not as they wanted me to be, but as I actually was. I could still see their faces. The moment their carefully built story about who I was collapsed completely. The next morning, I checked my emails. There was one from Hudson Kane. I'm sorry, he wrote. I didn't know you were Jessica's sister. I've always respected you at the company. He explained his shock, adding that Jessica had told him I was a receptionist who helped with paperwork. I didn't expect her to be like that, he wrote. I'll be ending this relationship. Thank you for not putting me on the spot. I leaned back against my headboard. After a few minutes, I wrote a response. Hudson, that's your decision. I don't expect anyone to make choices, to stay in my good graces. And for the record, I don't mix family with business. I hit send. No further explanation was needed. Later that morning, Jessica called. I declined. I was tired of apologies that only came after everything had fallen apart. A message arrived minutes later. I'm sorry. I didn't think Hudson would do this. Please talk to him. You're his boss. He'll listen. I walked to the window, looking out at the city as I typed my reply. Hudson didn't leave because of me. He left because of how you live, how you treat people, and how you always assume you can get what you want with a soft voice. She messaged back instantly. I know I messed up. I'll change. Please believe me. I read it, felt nothing, and gently deleted the message. I finally understood that sometimes the distance between people isn't in the apology, but in when the apology arrives. 2 weeks later, Hudson requested a transfer back to our southern branch. I approved it without a second thought. A week after that, I came home to find my parents on my porch, each with a small suitcase. I didn't ask why they were there. I just opened the door and invited them inside. We sat in my living room, drinking the tea I'd made. My father apologized quietly, and my mother said things should never have gotten this bad. I listened, trying to figure out if this was an ending or a beginning. Just as I expected, my father's tone shifted. We're family, Olivia. We raised you. Part of everything you have comes from us, right? Then my mother spoke, her voice gentle as if it were a simple request. If you could send us maybe $2,000 a month, just a little support. It's not much for someone like you. I looked at them, the same people who had excluded me because they thought I was an embarrassment. Now they were in my home, putting a price on their apology. Apparently, one of Jessica's friends had mentioned our company's latest funding round, $47 million. And suddenly, I was worth reconciling with. A soft, involuntary laugh escaped me, the kind that comes from a story that makes no sense. I leaned back in my chair. How much will Jessica be contributing each month? My father and mother exchanged a glance. Your sister's job is unstable, she said, and the breakup with Hudson has taken a toll on her. The same excuses, just reworded. I looked directly at them. If she agrees to give you $2,000 a month, I'll do the same. Or, if you want me to carry the full amount, I'll need a legal agreement that when you pass away, the house will belong to me. The silence was a physical presence. My father suddenly stood up, slamming his hand on the table, spilling tea. You're setting conditions for your parents. We raised you for over 20 years, and now you want to nickel and dime us? What kind of person are you? He shouted. I didn't flinch. I waited for him to finish, then stood up slowly. My voice was low and calm. I think you should both leave my house. It wasn't a threat, just a boundary I was finally setting. No one said anything else. The only sounds were their suitcases being dragged across the floor and the quiet closing of the door behind them. After they left, I stood at the window, watching them walk away. The familiar ache in my chest, the one I'd carried for decades, finally began to fade. It's been 2 years since I last saw them. I haven't blocked them. I just stopped reaching out, waiting to see if they'd still consider me family without me fulfilling my role as their silent supporter. In those 2 years, there have been no calls, no birthday wishes, not even a simple "how are you?" Jessica tried to contact me once, asking for a job recommendation. I politely declined. I used to believe they would change, but I've realized not everyone does, especially those who have never acknowledged they were wrong. I still live and work here, but now I don't let myself be an emotional ATM. I've started building relationships with people who see me clearly, colleagues who value my ideas, friends who call just to check in, and even someone special who looks at me with genuine interest rather than expectation. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that family isn't a place where people can demand kindness and call it love. Real family is where you're valued as a person, not a wallet or a backup plan. Before I close this chapter, I have to ask, was I wrong? Was I too cold? Or was I finally learning to value myself at exactly the right time?